Gray,
Aye.
Padilla,
Aye.
Morales,
Aye.
Fogg,
Aye.
Mayor Buds.
Aye. PR2.
Staff report recommending that the mayor and council members direct the mayor to execute a funding agreement approved as to form by the city attorney with the Inglewood Transit Connector Joint Powers Authority to contribute $7.6 million annually as adjusted for inflation during the operations period to support the ongoing costs of the operating and maintaining of the Inglewood Transit Connector project and $3.7 million annually in each of the 2 years prior to adjusted for inflation to plan construction completion to establish a project reserved for unexpected operating period obligations.
Okay. Before we have the report, Mr. City Attorney, number one should read authorize the mayor as opposed to direct the mayor. Madam City Clerk,
sorry?
it should be authorize the mayor. Does anyone want to hear a staff report?
Yeah, she
Yeah, I
should
would.
come up.
Go ahead,
I would,
Miss.
Mr.
Mhm.
Chair.
See?
Oh, okay.
Good Good afternoon, Mayor and members of the council. This is an item, the O&M funding commitment for the ITC connector project. I just want to say there's been a lot of work that's been done on it. It's still continuing to be worked on very hard, and Lisa Trifiletti is here to do a presentation for you.
Thank you, Mr. Verletti.
Okay. Good afternoon, council members, mayor. Just giving an overview on the item today, but always when we talk about the Inglewood Transit Connector, we want to just remind why we're doing this project and how we're doing the project. As you know, 1.6 elevated automated transit system with 3 stations, and now the maintenance facility is co-located with the very first station. It is designed to move up to 11,000 people during the peak hour, and we will be benefiting 4 million people anticipated to ride the system annually. And over 30 years, we anticipate an estimated 3.9 billion vehicle miles traveled reduced from this project. So it has tremendous environmental benefit. It will help reduce congestion in residential neighborhoods, connect the world to the city of Inglewood, your global sports and entertainment destination. It invests in our historically disadvantaged area, engages local workforce, and serves as a transit model that multiple entities at the state and local federal level are willing to invest in and get behind, all so that we can get this done in time for the Olympics, but this goes way beyond the Olympics. As you all know, on event days, which is slated to be more than just a few days a week, but very often, maybe even having simultaneous events, we all experience congestion in the area. And again, this ITC program is really designed to help relieve congestion in the residential community, where folks are trying to having difficulty getting in and around their neighborhoods on an event day, and really create again a premier choice of travel to the destinations. And we are investing in, again, this greenhouse gas reduction project. It has been recognized across the country as something that provides environmental justice to the community, and the Cal Enviro screen still recognized as a priority population. We do this with the people in the community in mind. The city will require 35% local hire, 20% apprenticeships. We have a project labor agreement. In fact, we recently spoke with the LA Orange County Building Trades about launching increased apprenticeship programs for our youth as soon as possible. Disadvantaged businesses program, we have complied with the FTA. We've set a requirement at 16%, which is using the federally prescribed goal methodologies, and we've established an aspirational goal of 30% for small business, again, focusing on small, local, minority, women, and veteran-owned businesses to participate. We've done some work with the LA Economic Development Corporation. We're going to continue to update this in light of the it refined cost estimates, but you could see it's, again, it has regional economic benefits across the board. And we do this in mind, making sure that we continue to invest in downtown, revitalize the downtown business area, looking at streetscape improvements, facade improvements, and really starting to get out in the field with the property owners and the small businesses to make sure that we're looking at renovating the entire area while we do the project. Thinking about best practices that LA Metro has put in place for the LAX Crenshaw line. Obviously, we'll tailor it to Inglewood's needs, but set aside $5 million for business assistance funds to facilitate financial assistance that maybe have some disruption during the construction. And so we have accomplished a lot. You all know we've accomplished the CEQA, the environmental clearance, both at the state and the federal level. We've established a joint powers authority. We have 3 developer teams that are all expected to participate once we release a request for proposals. We have only started the due diligence on real estate and business relocation. And we, again, I think it's really important to know how we're thinking about the local community and local hire, which is embedded in all of our contractual requirements manifested in their project labor agreement. What is unbelievable is how much money we've assembled today for the design and construction. Over $765 million in state and federal funding, and more is anticipated. I think this summer, in June, we are slated and have a recommendation from Caltrans for another $68.7 million. And we are well underway working with the Federal Transit Administration to receive a capital improvement grant that could exceed $1 billion. We also are going to be, I think, this week in front of the Metro Board because the South Bay Council of Governments unanimously supported the backstop, the financial backstop for $108 million to support this project. And all of these pieces show how much you've been able to secure to date, because all of the design and construction will be handled by these sources of funds. So to keep moving, there's some critical gates we have to get through. We have to receive a medium rating in order for us to achieve that federal grant I talked about. And you have to show, as part of our submittal, which we're looking to do by the end of the month, hopefully, that we have substantial local match on the design and construction, which clearly you have achieved, and also you have at least 10% of the operation and maintenance costs committed. We have done all this analysis, and we have a high confidence that we will receive a medium rating. Now, we don't give the rating, the FTA gives the rating, and they put you through rigorous tests to make sure. But we have peer-reviewed it with all of our technical experts, former FTA members, and we have a high confidence of receiving a medium rating, assuming that we have all of our critical agreements in place, most of them.
Mr.
Operation,
Bernardi?
yes?
What is the total of our local matches we've assembled so far from other sources other than the city?
So far, you've assembled $765 million with an additional $100 million, 108 actually, for financial backstop. And there's $68.7 million that we anticipate getting a recommendation. I don't want, the vote is happening in June. Plus, we have also a $5 million earmark being right by Senator Feinstein that they're going to be voting on as well.
All from other sources than the city, is that right?
Yes.
Thank you.
So now that we turn to operation and maintenance, why do you need to have, the sources of funds? Well, let's talk about what it means. We have the maintenance of the transit system. This is just an example, but this is the electricity, the mechanical systems, the labor, the maintenance of the fare collection system, and just, again, overall just cleanliness. You have the maintenance of the stations and the public rights of way. You have to have the station upkeep, the landscaping, safety and security, ambassadors, crowd control, customer service, fare collection. We need to make sure that a system, your state-of-the-art, the city has state-of-the-art infrastructure, is always in a state of good repair. Replacement of capital infrastructure and systems during the entire 30-year contract term. equipment, again, landscaping, public art, all of that has to stay in a state of good repair. And then you have just your basic administration and oversight costs such as insurance and compliance management and the Joint Powers Authority staffing as well. So it's about approximately 30 million. We anticipate, again, this is conservative at this stage, but we're erring on the side of being conservative for project-generated revenue from Farebox, advertising, and also the California Air Resources Board has a program for a low-carbon fuel credit that is being renewed right now, and we're in the process of receiving a letter, I believe this week, from CARB saying that our program would be eligible for that program, and they look forward to working with us. We have a collaboration with our stakeholders, including the venues, and in partnership with Murphy's Bowl, we've always anticipated that they would have a very robust transportation demand management program, a very robust shuttle program, and they have agreed to convert a contribution of some of their shuttle funding toward the operation and maintenance, since it would hopefully relieve their burden on some portion of their shuttle program. And so that is also being worked out, and it's all consistent with their development agreement terms. Also, and then
Would that fit in, Mr. Valetti? Would that fit in with our 7.6?
that would fit in with the third bucket here, the collaboration with stakeholders. So that's $2.5 million that we are looking to achieve as already identified in their development agreement. And then we have the city sources of funds, the transportation restricted or transportation related revenue sources. That's the 7.6 million. And they come from a collection of different sources. There's certain signage revenue. There's two signs that fall within the Caltrans jurisdiction. It is a requirement of the Federal Highways Act that those dollars be dedicated to transportation, and in this case, we would dedicate them to the ITC since they are limited to transportation. There are anticipated parking revenues that would come from this project. Remind you that at the very first station and at the station where you make the turn at Prairie and Market, we would have additional parking. And so we've looked at parking rates, and we have a parking revenues that we anticipate for this project. You just recently passed a new revenue source, very similar to other jurisdictions, City of Los Angeles, Santa Monica, Culver City, a lot of jurisdictions, Manhattan Beach, a lot of jurisdictions within the South Bay actually have a transportation infrastructure impact fee. That is something that we would be levying to support the ITC operation and maintenance. And again, your Nexus study was based on the costs associated with the ITC.
Mr. Valetti?
Yes.
But would you make it clear that a transportation impact fee is nothing that is attached to property tax bills or sales tax? It would be something attached to something that was transportation related, like parking admissions tax?
Those fees are directly for new development. They're developer fees, so as they go through plan check, it's a fee that they pay for transportation infrastructure.
All right.
And so they're not taxed on the residents, it's just on the businesses paying a plan check fee.
Thank you.
Transit occupancy tax, recently in 2021, the city put out a ballot measure where you increased your transit occupancy tax for hotel guests to 15.5% from where you were at 14%. That is 15.5% is the transit occupancy tax that the city of Los Angeles receives. If all those hotels on Century Boulevard, they all pay 15.5% transit occupancy tax. And you see hotels that are coming into the city. And so the request is only to dedicate only the increment, only the 1.5%, not the whole fee, just the increment that was recently passed toward the operation and maintenance, and then the rest would go into the 14% that you've always had would go into your general fund. And lastly, there's a portion of your local return, Proposition A, C, Measure R, Measure M. They have some local return dollars. They're 4 1/2-cent sales tax measures that come back to the city for your. So we would request a portion of that be dedicated as well. And Again, I think the idea is we would want to exhaust the transportation infrastructure impact fee, your signage, and all your other sources here listed before tapping into local return. Just as we have achieved great success in receiving $765 million in grant funding, and we look for every single source that we can, we would continue to look for additional sources of funds as well. And so that is that's a commitment that we have directed by the city and the mayor. And again, all of this is all to make sure that we achieve the Olympics, and we are at a very critical point in time.
Lisa, isn't it true though also that we have had discussions with the Assemblywoman about using transportation infrastructure money that's issued every year by the state to make it optional that you could use it for operations and maintenance? That's another potentiality, is that right?
Yes, we've spoken to the Assembly member, and I know that lots of transit agencies across the country are looking at solutions because they have their own operation and maintenance stresses, and so we would look to partner with those as well.
Okay, thank you.
So I think that concludes the presentation and takes you to where we are in this critical schedule.
Are there any questions from the council?
I do have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, are there any others as well?
I'll be doing, just
okay.
comment.
Okay, so we'll go with Councilwoman Gray, then we'll go to Councilman Padilla, and then Councilman Morales.
And then I'll have a question, Mayor.
Okay, and then we'll just say, everybody will just
Just bring it on.
chime in. All right, go right ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa, for that report. I do think it's always important to report out on very important projects, and this is a very important project, so thank you for the information. You talked about the amount of money that we received so far through grants.
Yes.
And can you just reiterate the total cost of the project and how much funding is needed? And then I have other questions.
The total cost for the construction of the project, the design and construction, is around $1.85 billion. And as you can see from the screen here, all of that, we're searching and receiving grants for all of the design and construction. And then the operation and maintenance is estimated conservatively around $30 million annually.
So what's that total in terms of what's left for
Well,
funding?
Well, if we receive the federal capital improvement grant, then we would have achieved all of our funding sources for the design and construction, and then we're now looking for and developing the operation and maintenance grants
I'm
funding.
asking about
Yeah.
the total cost of the project now.
Right, the total cost for the project is $1.85 billion at this stage.
And we have $765 million right now,
Yes,
and that leaves us,
about $1 billion.
Okay.
That is the amount that we would be requesting from the
Right,
Federal
right,
Transit
right.
Administration.
and the item, the action item on the agenda is really important to move forward with
Yes.
the project. And so I think that's important for the public to know. I'm optimistic about, we have to be optimistic about acquiring the funding, but it's important that the public is aware that this action item really has to, if the council approves it, it has to happen in order for us to move forward
Yes.
to receive any additional funding. I appreciate the fact that you addressed some of the environmental issues in your report, as well as hiring. Jobs are very important, I think, in terms of the benefit to this community. Local hiring is very important. I know that the city has done that on our projects here, but that's very important to stress. The businesses, I know we've talked about that. So that's always as part of the plan. I just really wanted to make sure the public understood why this is on the agenda
Yes.
and why the council is considering it,
Yes.
because of the importance of moving forward with potentially coming to creation of the project, if you will.
And to get to the full funding grant agreement with the Federal Transit Administration, we need to achieve a medium rating. So with your vote today, we have assembled a package, and we're hoping to, submit the request for a rating in short order. The next step with the Federal Transit Administration is to get into entry to engineering, which is another gate and has another set of, qualifications to achieve that. And then once you're through that, then you negotiate a full funding grant agreement. So
Right.
we have a couple steps to get through this process.
And the other point is that should the project, and we're being optimistic about it, should it not happen, then the monies, if this is approved today, does not happen. It does,
Absolutely. If we don't receive a medium rating, we
Then
don't
we
get into
don't use
entry
the
to
money.
engineering, we don't get a full funding grant agreement, these monies stay with the city.
right, thank you.
Council Padilla.
Great, thank you. And Lisa, first off, thanks for the presentation, and thank you for a very well put together staff report. You touched on several things that, we all have, thoughts about, and it's, ITC from the beginning of discussions on this project, we knew there was going to be a lot of moving pieces and a lot of education on the part of not only staff, ourselves on the dais, but also, as important, the community, right? To get the community support as we move forward. And so I commend you and your staff for all the different community outreach that you've done, whether it's pamphlets that have gone out, community meetings that you've had. I know last week, I believe you had them with the Chamber of Commerce.
Yes.
So working closely with our chamber to make sure our business owners are aware of this project and the positive impacts it'll have on them and how we're gonna work together with them and the residents to move this forward. People always say, what about jobs? And so you touched on the job part, and something that we've taken to heart from the get-go, especially when you talk about when we opened the forum, 35% local hire, which had a significant impact on our community because it dropped our unemployment rate to the lowest it had ever been. And we continue to make sure that we do that with all our major projects and working together to make sure we have a project labor agreement, a PLA, which you touched on as well. So these are all the things that we're doing to help our community, to make sure we're hiring folks locally, to make sure that we're notifying our residents, our business owners, anybody that has an interest in this project of what it is and what steps we're taking to get there and to answer any questions or concerns. So I know that, you talked about passing some of the fees when new projects come in with the developers, right? So that's important for folks to know, and I know the mayor just touched on it in his comment about just to make sure people don't start thinking that, oh, they're gonna tax my house more, my property taxes and stuff, and that's not what that is. So, just understand that we hear you. That's not what we're doing, but this is, again, today's presentation, I just gotta say this, an effort to make sure that the public understands what we're doing and why we're doing this. So thank you. I appreciate your report. I appreciate all the work and effort that went into your staff report. Very much appreciated.
Yes, thank you.
Councilwoman Falk.
Thank you, Lisa, for your report. This is so informative. And, I talk to you all the time because I always have questions. And so this is very helpful because one thing that I do want to make sure that our residents understand is the positive impacts of this project. And especially with me being the council member for District 4, this will have a really good impact on traffic congestion and relieve that whole congestion that's happening in District 4. So that's one of the things that I look forward to, and I know our residents look forward to, is being able to minimize that, especially with Intuit Dome coming in. And then also, I do like your report as you kind of highlighted a lot of the positive things that's happening on this project as well regarding jobs and small businesses and the apprenticeship program as well. So I want you to please keep making sure that residents understand that there are many benefits to this project. I do want you, if you don't mind, can you talk a little bit more about what the maintenance would look like? Like once it's built and the Olympics comes to town and we are so happy that we have this project in place, because all of the visitors from outside of our country and inside of our country will be coming into this wonderful city of Inglewood. Once that's done and we're going into maintenance and trying to make sure that it continues to be this really good transportation system, what will that look like financially for us, and how will we build on that?
So it's as I said, the operation and maintenance is conservatively estimated to be approximately $30 million because of all of the components to have a world-class system. Looking at the fare collection, again, labor, electricity, mechanical systems, looking at just the maintenance of the transit system itself, and then the stations and the public right-of-way. I think when we talk about, what this project is designed to achieve, I'm very blessed to have the opportunity to work for and with Louis Atwell, the Director of Public Works, because when we put this program together from the very outset, we looked at a comprehensive mobility plan. We didn't just look at the ITC in isolation. We looked at intelligent transportation system. We looked at bike and pedestrian paths. We looked at, transit, mobility, micro mobility. We looked at, you name all of it collectively, and really wanted to make sure that the ITC, while it is the centerpiece of your mobility plan, we looked at it comprehensively. In fact, that's why Caltrans may be giving us this next fund for the $68.7 million, because some component of it is also for bike lanes. But going back to the question about the maintenance of the stations, the public rights of way, working in concert with Public Works to understand, where the dividing line is on landscaping and pedestrian streetscape, making sure that it's in the contractual commitment to keep this system in a state of good repair, and then making sure we have the right competent staff once this is operational, to really make sure compliance with those contractual requirements. So all of it is included in those costs and looking at it holistically.
Lisa, could we make it a little more simple?
Sure.
So operations, to operate it, you need people to operate the facility. You need security people to make sure it's secure. You need maintenance people to maintain the hygiene of the cars in the stations. And then maintenance, it's just like your car. Your car needs oil changes. It needs transmission overhauls. Anything that comes with time and the use of the facility has to be repaired. And so what Lisa is laying out when she says that 30 million, she means on the average to run the facility operations, to maintain it, to fix things, would be about $30 million.
Yes, and we're also engaging with the bidders and with our own technical team as to how we could reduce those costs to the extent feasible. So looking at how we can work in partnership with Metro to take advantage of the services they provide, thinking about how we can increase efficiencies without sacrifice to the program operational goals. So we're exploring all of that as to how to be the most efficient and work with our partners to achieve even better than 30 million, but that's the conservative estimate at this moment.
Thank you, Lisa.
Councilman Morales.
Thank you, and thank you. Just starting on that, so much has been said, so you did a great job on the presentation, Mr. Folletti. But just to start on that point that you're talking about, it's 30 million a year annually, but during that time, you will continue to look for partnerships so that we can kind of minimize the input that needs to happen from other grants and everything else. So
Absolutely.
that's a key point. One of the things that I wanted to touch on was the fact that when folks are talking about this project, they're thinking, hey, the cost, are we paying, et cetera. I mean, this is a $1.8 billion project, and we're talking about, over 30 years is probably like 200 million, which is a very small percentage of the actual cost that we would be inputting, and we're hoping it was less. But what the businesses locally and what the residents locally are thinking about is, how does that affect me if we commit that? Because it's not normal to commit $7 million a year sitting here right now on 1 year, right? So this is something we obviously take into consideration, and I appreciate you and your great staff who sat down with me and heard all of those concerns in total of okay, if I'm a resident, I'm thinking, do I still get my sidewalks? Do I still get my streets? And the answer is yes. We are working on considerable amount of funding, And those are things that we need to continue to do, and we will continue to do. What's important here, and it's stated by two or three of us here up here, is the fact that, where we're at right now is we're in a crucial time, right? We started something that nobody thought we could do. It was a dream a few years back, and thanks to your work, Ms. Trifoletti, and of course, no sleeping with the mayor, the mayor not sleeping, I should say.
no sleeping with the mayor.
No, the mayor not sleeping, and everybody else doing their part. We are here, and we have an opportunity. And when you're here, we still have all of these parts. And I'm doing this, and I know we all know it here, sitting here, but for the public's benefit, we have all these parts that need to still click. We still need a bunch of people to say yes to us. But we're at a point where we need to say yes right now to give ourselves that opportunity for them to say yes.
That's correct.
And so we're taking that step together. We're saying today what we're saying is we believe in this project. If they believe in us, we can make it happen, and this is how we will do it, okay? And so we're doing it thinking about the residents. We're doing it thinking about what we need to do every day here, and we know what the commitment is. And that's what I wanted to really, really state, the fact that we understand what we're doing here. We are very hopeful. You always, I like the way Councilman Gray says, we have to hope that they are going to approve us. We have to. We're not going to kill our project. We're not going to do it. That wouldn't be smart. We've gone this far. We've teamed up with you. You've done a great job. I'm glad you mentioned Mr. Lewis Atwell. I mean, is he strong or what? I mean, this guy really, not only does he work with you well, but he does a great job of explaining it to all of us. So thank you very much. So we're going to take this step today.
Okay. So what more need be said? Well, I'll tell you this. Every one of the council has done a great job of explaining the whys and wherefores. I'm going to just step back a little bit and say this, that there is no city in the United States of America of our size or much larger that could ever consider assembling close to $2 billion for a transportation system. I want you to think about that, because the state, federal, and county governments would never consider granting that kind of money to a city of 110,000 people that's 9 square miles. And you know why they do that? You know why they're considering it? Because we have proven time and time again, not only can we do big things, but we can make sure the public benefits. For us to not take this vote, I'm glad it seems like everyone is favorable, would be political malpractice. Political malpractice, not to say, well, we want to just see if we'll assemble the whole $2 billion. Because what's happened in Inglewood is something that's happened unlike any other city in the past 10 years. We've assembled 3 professional sports teams. We've cut our unemployment rate from 17.5% to 5%, from one of the highest in the state of California to the lowest for a minority-majority city in the country. We've tripled the property values for our residents. This isn't any product of gentrification. Nobody moved anywhere. They just woke up one day and my house is worth 3 times what it was. And nobody on this dais has to do this, because this is something that's not going to be in effect if we get all of the grant money until 2027. And usually what political people do is they vote for stuff that's within their time frame that they can see for their elected period of office. So what you have a group of people that are saying, we want to prepare the city of Inglewood for the future. And for us to not believe that with all that we've done with YouTube, the NFL networks, the Girl Scouts, LA Philharmonic, the Rams, the Chargers, the Clippers, Showtime, open a production studio, to believe that 7 years from now, that we don't believe that we'll be able to handle the O&M, that would be an extremely short-sighted, myopic group of people. And so this is what I want to get across to the public. Nobody here has to vote for this, and it's not going to make or break anybody's political career. But what this does, it says that we are bold enough to try and prepare the city for the future. And so, Ms. Trifoletti, we've been at this for what, like 6 years now?
I don't know. And I want to say, Mayor, this is not possible, not just without the council and the staff, Carly Katona, but it's your city staff. I mean, Sharon Koike, you're already, this is across the board. This is like all in, all across all departments. So I want to make sure we give them the shout out.
I was going to do that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But look, it's the city of Inglewood, and here's the beautiful thing, like, you know, we have an email that goes out, it's to the everyone group. Well, this is everyone. And for 6 years we've been at this, and we went from what was supposed to be a $1.2 billion project to now almost $2 billion. And each step of the way, the funding partners have stepped up and said that we believe in you. And so we just need one more last, we believe in you. So I want to thank you, Ms. Trifoletti, for all your hard work and your staff's work, because it takes for granted that we know that our staff do everything they can to make things work. But I want to thank you personally. And so with that, we'll close the council comments.
I'll move item 1, Mayor, either authorize whatever, or direct whatever's legal term here, the mayor to execute funding agreement.
To
Second.
authorize. Madam City Clerk.
Council members Gray,
Aye.
Padilla,
Aye.
Morales,
Aye.
Fall,
Aye.
Mayor Buds.
Aye. DR3.
Staff report presenting the fiscal year 2022 through 2023 mid-year budget review report.
Right. Ms. Buchanan.
Good afternoon. I think they need to change this.
He's coming, he's coming.
presentation here.
You a bad dude. You a bad dude.
And I just used this.
Alex,
Okay,
that was good.
all right.
That was good. That was good.
It's ready? Okay. All right. Good afternoon. Good
Yeah,
afternoon,
that was
Good
good.
afternoon.
Mayor, council, members of the public, city clerk, and staff. So I am here to present the city's fiscal year 22-23 mid-year presentation report based on the first 6 months of the fiscal year, beginning October 1, 2022 through March 31st, 2023. But the mid-year report presentation provides a snapshot and a summary of the city's financial status, primarily focusing on the general fund, but also highlighting a brief summary of special funds. Please refer to the agenda for the full report. We'll begin with our key economic indicators. First, we have our property taxes. Property tax has experienced a 7.2 net taxable value increase for the 22-23 tax roll, which is approximately 60% more than the countywide at 7%.
Okay, let me interrupt for 1 second. That 7.2% doesn't mean that everybody's property tax bill went up 7.2%, does it?
No, it does
It means
not.
the assessed value of all properties, which would include commercial properties that have turned over recently as well, have been reassessed, and the actual value of properties in the city has increased. Is that right?
That is correct.
That doesn't translate to a property tax bill, does it?
No,
Very good. All right.
very good. So this is attributable to the 2% assessors applied California Consumer Price Index increase per Proposition 13, inflationary adjustments to the city's property taxes. This is not also an indicator of the actual property tax revenues for this quarter. That will be discussed in the following slides with each revenue category. Sales tax, our next economic indicator. Sales tax quarterly trends are experiencing an increase of 8.9% over same period prior year. This increase is mainly attributed to core inflation above the Federal Reserve target level, continue to be a key factor in rising local tax receipts for general consumer goods. Building permit activity, which we consider our building permit fees, the activity is up 99.6% over prior year's same period. The activity variance is based on the development changes and strength in quantity and value of permits for multifamily dwellings and new constructions. So with that being said, it varies from year to year based on the actual demand for permits and as well as the strength of the quantity and the value of those permits. UUT, which is our utility users taxes, is up 26.1% over the same period prior year. This increase is a correlation of higher demand and utility charges. This has actually been a continuance as well since COVID, that we have been acknowledging the increase in higher demand as well as utilities, and that relates to the continued development and construction as well that's going on here. Our hotel tax, known as the transient occupancy tax. The hotel tax has increased 23.6% compared to prior year's same period. This is a result of our rate increase and heightened activity. Unemployment for the city is 5.4% down. That's approximately 11% compared to the same quarter last year, which is favorable for the city.
Yes, it is.
The city's expenditures for the general fund are under budget by 24.4%, the proportionate spending of 50% through the mid-year. I will explain in more detail while discussing the general fund expenditures exactly what the proportionate of 50% would be and how you can clearly see that we are below our budget based on that proportion.
Ms. Buchanan, I have a comment to make that I usually make. The reality is this, though, we budget for a year, but we don't spend it in 12 equal increments every month. Isn't that right?
That's correct.
Because our spending, in large part, revolves around capital projects when payments are made for a capital project. Is that right or not?
That's right.
We
And-
could estimate salaries
of it.
over a 12-month period because our employees make an equal increment every month. But the other spending categories are not like that. And that's in large part why we say we come to this point and we're
still under.
spending under. Okay.
And it also has a lot to do with the seasonal operating things that we provide in the city. So they're seasonal and they're cyclical processes and programs that work that are not in place right now. So that's our summer program. We also have certain CIP projects that just don't get done until a certain period following mid-year and things like that. So yes, I'll be explaining that again when we get to the expenditures. Okay, so this is our general fund budget. This slide presents a snapshot of general fund budget as adopted on October 1, 2022, and the current modified as of March 31st, 2023, which is the reporting period in question, and the fiscal year 23 projected year-end estimate for budget based on the budget review that we have conducted through March 31st, 2023. So the first portion of our slide here at the top, it shows our general fund revenues that were anticipated at adoption were $191 million. It included an anticipated carryover, so the total is $201.8 million. Those revenues were to cover and support our expenditures, which were planned expenses at adoption of $195.9 million. The city was projecting a fund balance of $5.9 million for the fiscal year, and that would be assuming that all that is budgeted will be spent, including the need and use of the carryover, okay? Following adoption, additional budget adjustments were made, modifying the budget to the current modified budget that we have at our mid-year. Please do not be alarmed by the presentation of the values in the modification. As stated, it is a modification plan. It is not the foreseen projected plan from this period forward. I'll brief you on that on the shaded area at the bottom. So where we were at March 31 with our modified budget, we have general fund revenues are 191.3 million, with general fund expenditures are 209.7. Now, the city's modified projected available balance based on that current modification will show a negative fund balance of approximately 18.4. Again, assuming all is spent, this also does not include any of the carryover, because the carryover cannot be included in modifications. It's only to be used when it's to be realized.
So let's see, now some people would find that difficult to follow. So let's make it much simpler. The reality is that we budget a certain amount of money last year. We didn't spend all that money, is that right?
Yes.
But the projects that it's allocated for carried over into this year, is that right?
Yes.
But we
That was my
don't
next note.
book the money that we didn't spend last year until we actually do have to spend it in this year, is that right?
Yes.
And that's the whole deal. See, there's some people say, oh, you have a deficit. No, you don't.
No, we don't.
We're not allowed to authorize the use of the carryover funds until we actually carry them over. Now, Barbara, you got that, right? You go back and tell everybody that. All right.
So that was my note. My note states that there is a carryover for encumbrances to support the increase of the carryover value, though it's not included here. But any expense in excess of revenues will also be supported if there was a need by reserves, which that is not anticipated, because upon further review of the mid-year budget based on current activity, as well as the current levels of spending and things that we were able to clearly foresee and forecast, we have now concluded a year-end projection of what we anticipate our budget being at the end of the year, 9/30/2023. And that is revenues are estimated to be $206 million. Our general fund expenditures are anticipated to be $187.9 million, resulting in a projected year-end fund balance of 18.1 for the fiscal year. Now, the year-end estimate for revenues is based on the anticipation of slightly higher revenues in property, sales, motor vehicle in lieu, UUT, and more so other revenues, specific to a non-residential construction tax that is pending for us to be receiving. With that in mind, we are guaranteed to a certain degree to expect our $206 million at the end of the fiscal year, okay? As well as reassessing the revenues in the status of where we are today, the year-end projections for expenditures is based on the anticipation of lower expenditures due to vacant positions not being filled within this fiscal year, less CIP activity than initially planned, and that's pretty minimal, but it adds to our savings, and remaining work to be completed on continued contracts that have the potential of rolling over certain balances into '24 that might not get done this year as well. So further assumptions could result in higher revenues and/or expenditures, thus increasing or decreasing the available fund balance at year end. But as of today, we are confident enough to say that we do anticipate a fund balance of projected 18 million. Okay?
Now, the science of budget, Sharon, Mark, your people, is that a budget, an expenditure plan, is an estimate of what we will spend. Equally, our revenue forecast is an estimate based on history of what we will take in a given year. Is that right or wrong?
That is correct.
Okay. And so when we present a budget to the public, because I hear everybody talk about transparency, the reality is that it is a scientific estimate, mathematical estimate of what we'll spend and what we'll take in. And that's why we have these reconciliations on a quarterly basis where you come and say, well, this is what actually happened.
Yes.
Is that right?
That's
And
correct.
then when we get to the year end, the final year end report, which is after the fiscal year ends, then we actually know how we did. Is that right?
That is
All
correct
right,
as well.
thank you.
Okay, so moving along here to our mid-year general fund revenue performance. So this is a snapshot of the actual revenue performances based on the revenue categories that I've briefly mentioned before. These are the revenue categories that make up the total general fund revenue. So of the total modified general revenue budget amount of 191.3, the city has received 118.4 million, or 61.9% in revenues at mid-year, compared to 94.2 in prior year same period. There's a difference of 24.2 million. And following this slide, I will go through each revenue category and briefly discuss the increases that have resulted in this change from prior year. Okay, so property taxes are up $6.6 million, or 34.3%, according to the Los Angeles County Assessor's Office. And again, Inglewood experienced a net taxable value increase of 7.2. Our sales tax is up 1.1 million, or 8.9% compared to last year. This increase is mainly attributed to the rising cost of goods and services and gas fuel due to inflationary factors rather than increased shopper demand. It also includes it also is increased due to ongoing construction projects, also contributed increased boost from receipts that were purchased for building construction sectors. So that was also another added source that assisted in the increase for our sales tax. Our admissions tax. The admissions tax shows a 7.3 million, or 57.7% less than prior year. But as I mentioned in our first quarter, although these revenues in this category appear lower than prior year, this is just due to a lag in the adjustments that were made in prior year as opposed to the current. The revenues to date for admissions tax are 5.3 million, and of the anticipated 16.5, we anticipate receiving every single dollar of those taxes.
Okay, but let's do this again, though. So there are people who would take the slide and say, whoa, what happened to admissions taxes? Nothing happened to them.
Nothing.
This budget is a snapshot in time, and it talks about the monies that we've collected and booked so far to date. We may even be owed more than this.
That is
But this is what
correct.
we've booked so far to date. And we want to make
We
that
are more-
really
we are owed
clear.
more.
There's not this kind of cyclical swing in admission taxes, but the reality is that when the money is booked can change from quarter to quarter.
That's correct.
All right,
And
thank
then,
you.
there are going to be throughout different years and seasons where there might be certain heightened events in one quarter, and the next year you won't have that same heightened event in
Exactly.
that quarter. So that would also create a variance of sway when you're
Right.
looking at it. Admissions tax will never have a down spiral, so that's never going to be a discussion,
All right.
okay? And if anyone wants to question the value of the 16 million, when we budget 15 million for the actual admissions tax for SoFi, but we also budget additional funds that equal up to the 16.1, because we also have the forum and we also have the YouTube theater, okay? Next, our UUTs. Our UUT shows an increase of 2.1 million, or 26.1%. This is significantly higher due to receipts for electricity and a slight increase in gas and phone. That's correlated with higher demand and utility charges. The more development, the more business, and even, the more extended family homes we get, it will definitely bring in the ability to increase more utility users tax. Our other local taxes are down 1.8 million, or 9.6%. Now, although other local taxes are collectively trending downward, this is due to non-residential construction. which is offset by increases in TOT, business license, and parking taxes. Majority of the taxes in this category, actually all the taxes in this category are up compared to the prior year same period. It's just the non-residential construction taxes that vary year to year because they are based on permit issuance value, and it's very common for them to fluctuate during various developments. So what you're seeing here is not so much that they're down as we're not receiving what's expected. It's down based on last year having a higher permit issuance value at that time. The good thing is we are anticipating a large one-time payment for our non-residential construction for this fiscal year, which is why our revenues should reach 209. We just not have received it as of yet, okay? So with that being said, I anticipate by ninth quarter, this will be higher than last year. All right? Because we shall receive it by then. Last but not least, our other revenues are up approximately 22.9 million or 178.4%. This increase results from intergovernmental revenue from the Federal Fund American Rescue Act plan. The city brought in 10 million in our current budget, and revenue collected from building and planning fees, housing protection fees, and investment gains are why we are up 22.9 million compared to the prior year. So overall, our revenues are 24.2 million or 25.7 more than the prior year due to property tax, UUT, sales tax, and other revenues. And other revenues also includes some related departments' fees. Okay, so now that I've concluded our discussion for our revenues, I will present you some information relative to our expenditures. Our general fund expenditures, of the total modified general fund expenditure budget amount of 209.7, the city has expended 79.2 million or 37.8 in expenses at mid-year compared to 68.6 in the prior year same period. On the next slide, I will summarize the collective categories presented here and explain the increases. And the reason why I said I wanted to summarize it is because I don't want to sound redundant in my discussion flowing through each operation or departmental function. So please be mindful that all of the functions and departments here all show that they are more than prior year. That is anticipated, okay? The overall increase in the general fund expenditures in all functions or departments presented here resulted from negotiated wage and benefit increases for all bargaining units. So that is the overall basis as to why all of the functions and departments are higher than they were prior year. We also budgeted with the anticipation from them to be higher, so that is expected. In addition to that, we have a couple of departments or functions here, be it police, economic community development, parks, recreation, community services, as well as public works, who also have increases from some additional contractual agreements that appear to be a little bit higher this year than last year, but also anticipated. And then when it comes to our housing protection unit, they have, in addition to wage and salary benefit increases, they have some increases in staff. So police and fire are up 6 million or 13.4%. Economic community development is up 229,000, 7.9%. Housing protection is up $312,460 or 28.4%. Parks and Recreation and Community Services is up $842,531 or 21.2%. Library Services is up $267,704 or 17.5%. Public Works is up $531,321 or 8.7%. General Government is composed of all the other operational departments, which collectively are up 1.1 million or 12.9%. So overall,
One quick thing, there's people that would
Next
look at
one.
this and they would say, how can police be spending 6.2 million more and only have an 18.2% increase, whereas economic and community development is 229 and 7.9, or housing protection at 312 is 28.4%. Could you explain what it means if they start from a lower base?
what
They have
that
a
means
much
is-
smaller budget and much less employees.
well, first of all, they have a much larger budget. The police department holds the largest budget within the general fund. I want to say at its highest of maybe close to even 70% at this point of the general fund budget. But aside to that, the reason why their raises are much more and significantly higher than ours is because their raises were already inclusive of this budget. They were inclusive of this budget and had already started. So the impact of the expense has been ongoing since October 1. The other bargaining groups did not start receiving their raises until February. So
but-
you don't see as much of the increase in the other operating departments as you do in police.
Two things I want to really make clear.
Okay,
Like, if you take a unit like housing protection,
yes,
they have a lot less employees than the PD. The PD is the largest department in the city, is that right?
yes,
So a relatively smaller increase in their budget of 312,000 is going to have a lot bigger percentage impact on their bottom line than the PD, is that right?
yes.
And is it unusual that the police department compose 65, 70% of a general fund in a municipality?
That's normal. That's standard.
All
I
right.
don't think you'd probably have a police department if you didn't have those percentages.
Right, all right, thank you.
Yes. Okay, so the next slide, I will provide the understanding of how we are under budget in terms of our current level of spending. So this slide was added. We added this slide to assist in the understanding of how the increases have had an impact on the budget in comparison to prior year, but still under budget in terms of spending based on the overall appropriation. This slide provides a snapshot of the general fund expenditure performance by appropriation. So you have personnel services, maintenance and operations, capital outlay, one-times, and capital projects. General fund expenditure budget amount, as presented before, is $209.7 million, and the city has expended $79.2. That's $37.8 in expenses at mid-year. Though we are higher than last fiscal year, as previously stated, the city's expenditures for the general fund are still under budget by 24.4% of the proportionate spending of 50%. Our proportionate spending at 50% would be $104.8 million, and we are at 79.2. Okay? So please note that expenditures will increase as seasonal activities arise for seasonal and/or cyclical operations and activities, as well as filling more full-time vacancies and the continuance of spending on outstanding obligations for contracts and projects not yet fully expended at mid-year. Okay? So that's why we are still lower than our 50%. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You good with that? All right. All right, so that concludes our general fund. Now I will give you a briefing of our special funds. The special fund revenue category, I'll speak to the special funds first. The special fund revenues are up $39.4 million or 125.8 more collectively than the same quarter last fiscal year. We received $70.7 million or 43.3% of the budget. The increase is mostly attributed to our Measure IT support for vital services, which assists us with our general fund, as well as the American Rescue Plan Act transfer in that we were provided this year in support of the general fund, as well as community development block grant activity. Measure R Inglewood Transit Connector being the largest, and the residential installation project activity. Those are all the activities that are significantly high this quarter compared to last quarter. And these revenues consist of special revenues like gas tax, property Proposition A's, C's, grants, LAWA funding, those type of funding supports. That's what special revenues come from, state, federal funding grants. Our proprietary, which consists of water, sewer, sanitation, and parking revenues, are up 1.4 million or 6.3% more collectively from same quarter last year. We received 22.8 million or 45.2 of the current budget. Revenues have increased significantly in parking, glad to say, and sanitation, and are slightly offset by water during this period. Our debt service works the same in some respect on the revenue side as well as the expenditure. It has increased by 5.2 or 70% compared to last year. The amounts can vary based on our debt schedule, and this is a reflection of our transfer in support to pay our bond debt schedule, okay? And the principal amount of the bond had increased by 5 million, so that's the difference of what you see for that. Our special revenues, which is the support that we get, now I'm speaking to how we spend on that support. Expenses are up 36.4 million or 111.5% for the same quarter last fiscal year. We have expended 69.1 million or 36% of the budget. Same as with the revenues, mostly attributed to Measure R, the Inglewood Transit Connector, and residential sound installation project activity. Our proprietary for expenses are up 2.6 million or 13.7 collectively from the same quarter last year. We have expended 21.5 million or 35.9% of that budget. And this increase is mainly attributed to the sanitation fund and the water fund. Again, the debt service fund portion on the expense side shows the total debt costs for this year are 14.5 million for both joint powers of authority, which is our lease revenue bond for the Civic Center, and for the pension obligation bond. And per those bond instructions, which are due in March and September, the expenditures at mid-year are currently at 3.9. We will fulfill the complete 14.5 by the end of the fiscal year, before the end of the fiscal year, based on the payment date. Okay, so here we have our mid-year capital improvement project. This is our financial summary of our projects. The CIP budget includes a current appropriation of 133 million. Of this amount, a total of 34.9 million or 26.2 has been expended as of mid-year, ending March 31st, 2023. There's a total encumbrance amount for future commitments of 53.6 million or 40.3 of the total current appropriation. So of the total appropriation, 9.3 is appropriated to the general fund. A total of 1.6 or 17% has been expended from the general fund compared to 2.7 for the same period last fiscal year. Capital improvement project revenues and expenditures vary and reflect various activities throughout the year, which I believe you've already commented on that, Mayor. And lastly, in support of our capital improvement projects, we have a status here, a table of status by category. So this slide shows the projected status by category. We have a total of 40 projects that are in the construction phase, and we have 12 projects that are under contract for design. As of mid-year, there are a total of 52 CIP projects that are active. So that pretty much concludes our presentation, and as I stated when we began, this is just a summary and an overview, but it does give a lot of clear, concise, and complete information. If you'd like to read more on the detail explanations, please pull a copy from our agenda. We have a full report on the city's agenda for today's meeting.
Okay, we'll receive and file the report, DR4.
Staff report recommending that the mayor and council members adopt a resolution summarily vacate to summarily vacate
Summarily.
thank you, vacate 201 North La Brea Avenue, Inglewood, California, and summarily vacate any and all easement rights on and over the applicable property.
Mr. Atwell, would you explain what it means to vacate, or you or Mr. Fields, what it means to vacate a property? Basically, we're taking city-owned property and we're vacating it. What does that mean?
Yes, Mayor. It means that the property is then turned over to the adjacent property owners. That way, the property can be used for other reasons, and the city no longer has to maintain the property.
So somebody would ask, why would the city give up land? So explain this particular vacation. It's not a vacation, but that's the conjugate. But when we vacate 201 North La Brea, what is it exactly we're vacating?
So Mayor and Council, originally we thought we were going to be using the property for utilities, and Public Works has determined that we will not be using the property for utilities, and therefore the property owner can build on it.
Okay, but give us a picture of what 201 North La Brea looks like. What is that property?
It is a new development, Mayor, and it's interesting. That property actually had, like Artie mentioned, there was a utility going down the parking lot, which was never used.
So
And
it's
so they
a
couldn't
group
build
of
on it.
townhomes, is it not?
Correct.
It's a group of townhomes, and it is adjacent to the courthouse building. And there's going to be a number of townhomes built there. We own property that we thought we'd need for utilities, but now we're just ceding our interest in it in the interest of having a better project. Is that right?
That is correct.
All right. Are there any questions from the council before we adopt the resolution? Does anyone move adoption?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Madam City Clerk.
Council members, Gray,
Aye on this item, but Mr. Mayor, I do want to go back to item 3 regarding the budget, DR2. I know staff is left, but DR3. I know staff is left, but I do have questions regarding the budget.
Well,
Oh, okay, thank you.
okay,
Please.
Okay, hold on. Hold on. There's a motion on the floor. So you're moving that we go back to an item that's closed? Is
Well,
that-
you closed it so quickly, I didn't have a chance to ask questions.
Well, all you have to do is move it. You want to move that?
well, you have a motion on the floor already, Mayor, so we have to actually either vote on this item and then make a motion.
Yeah,
to
okay.
Go back to the.
So.
Thank you.
DR4,
You have a
call
motion and a
for-
second, Mayor.
okay. Madam City Clerk.
Yes, Mayor. Council members, Gray,
Which item are we voting on, please?
DR4.
Okay, aye to that.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Padilla,
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Fogg.
Aye.
Mayor Buds.
Aye. Now, you had a question on the receive and file, which has been received and filed.
I do have a question on DR3.
All right, go ahead, Ms.
First, thank you for your presentation. It's a lot to digest as a new council person. So I would like you to expand a little bit more on other revenues, that category, because it was a very large category in terms of assumptions moving forward. I think it was 23%. You did highlight some of the areas, but that is important. Can you?
Ms. Buchanan, if you don't have those, it's a lot of categories. If you
No,
don't
I
have-
have.
No, this is other.
I thought someone,
This is other revenues. You already made some comments about it.
you
and I like
wanted to know specifically what that entails.
Category is, yes.
And what that category
Is,
includes.
Right,
Okay?
correct.
I have that.
yeah, that's all I want you to
Okay.
expand more on because it's a large part of your assumptions moving forward. I think it's 23% almost. And so I just want you to expand a little bit more on that.
So first I'll explain. Other revenues include our user fees such as planning and permit fees collected by various city departments. They also include parking and vehicle code violations and fines, as well as revenues from investment earnings and interest, along with certain miscellaneous one-times. And within that, this is the category where our ARPA funds were budgeted. This is also the category where we received the majority of our development fees right now in relation to all the development and the construction that's going on in the city.
Right, I know it's a large portion, so out of those funds that you named, is there any that is more risky than others in terms of receiving those revenues coming into the city?
No,
Okay.
no.
All right,
Most
what?
of these are constituted by fees, so they're guaranteed
So they're
as long
guaranteed
as
to
the
come into the
services
city?
are
Right,
provided,
right.
yes.
And then on the expenditure side, I know you talked about the police budget being 70%, and that's not unusual in cities.
No.
But I know there's I believe, a large vacancy rate in the police department. How does that fit in with the budget moving forward?
That's basically why we're not going to exceed our budget by end of the year, because in totality for the
Right,
general
this year.
fund, we have a significant amount of vacancies.
Right.
And PD being the largest
Right.
salary and benefit compensation, and having
However, Ms. Buchanan,
about
isn't it true that
20
that we
vacancies.
budget for a fully staffed police department? Is that right or wrong?
Yes, we do.
So if we were to fill the vacancies, the money is there.
Money
We
would still be there.
we
It'll be
budget
there.
for
Right,
it.
right.
Yes, so
Okay.
that's why.
Right.
yes.
One last question. What is our reserves amount right now?
Are you specifically speaking to the
General
general
fund.
fund
Yes, I
cities
am.
reserves?
Yes, I am.
The general fund reserves as of 9/30/2022, that is unassigned, where we can spend it as we choose, is 101.1 million.
Okay, thank
As
you.
of 9/30/2022.
All right, thank you very much.
Do you want to touch on the cost savings with the employee? Did you want to touch on the
Oh,
cost savings?
okay, so one more thing, Mr. Buchanan. So when we budget at the beginning of the year, we budget for full staffing, is that right?
That's, yes.
And so if we do not fill all those positions during the year, those are carried over as cost savings, is that right or wrong?
Yes,
And so that may or may not end up showing that we had so I hate this word surplus, because there's no such a thing as a surplus with city money, but that we spent less than we could have anticipated spending.
yes. So that's why, for one of the pictures where you saw our modified showing 18 million that we can probably go over, when we reassess where we are today and what we plan to do going forward, knowing we have all these vacancies and there's, potential hire, but not to the extent of all the vacancies we have, that's why we're able to now bring our budget anticipation down from 209 to 187. It's a collective of saving about 10 million in personnel services, 8 million in operations, and so on and so forth.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Buchanan. But just stand by, you may have to come back.
Made you sure again.
SPH 1.
Staff report requesting that a public hearing be set to consider an ordinance amending or repealing various municipal code sections regulating peddling, soliciting, and sidewalk vending, and adding a new Article 13 to Chapter 8 of the municipal code to comply with the changes in state law.
Set the public hearing for June 6, 2023. A1.
Thank you, Mayor. There's no reports from the city attorney's office.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. CM1.
Thank you, Mayor. There are no oral reports from the city manager's office.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. CC1.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Unlike Christine last week, I have some reports.
I miss
She told me she was
Christine.
coming
We miss
back.
Christine.
First, Mayor, I would like to thank my staff. My deputy and I were out last week attending the City Municipal Clerks Week, International Institute of Municipal Clerks. We attended a conference there, and so I want to thank my staff, Christine, Destiny, and Cherie, for holding it down, and then a special thank you to Christine and Destiny for doing a fantastic job last week at the council meeting. They did such a good job. Also, Mayor, I would like to go back to our Women Rock event. I wanted to personally thank our sponsors, Crystal Stairs, the Clippers, the Rams, Jam's Creamery, Teeny Pickles, and also Spa 313, and Councilwoman Falk. If I'm missing someone, feel free to chime in if you like, but wanted to just personally thank them, because without them, our swag bags wouldn't have been what they were. So thank them. And then, Mayor, lastly, while we were in Minneapolis, I'm so happy my deputy and I got a chance to visit the memorial of George Floyd, and that was something, you know, to look at. I mean, wow, you just have to be there. It was very phenomenal. It was really phenomenal. And then lastly, Mayor, last Thursday, my mother passed, and so I would ask that you close the meeting in honor of my mom, Bonsil L. Smith. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes my remarks.
Public comment.
Oh, there she is.
Any persons wishing to comment on any matter concerning city business not heretofore addressed may do so at this time. Are there any public comments? Hearing no public comment, we'll go to council comments.
Mayor,
Yes,
I'm,
ma'am.
I'm sorry, there was a lady that mentioned to me she wanted to speak. I don't know if she's here, but, okay,
Is that her? Go right ahead, ma'am.
okay. I'm sorry, Mayor. I
Thank you.
just-
All right.
Mayor, City Council. My name is Trina Lawson, and I am an Inglewood resident and business owner. I am here in support of the funds for future maintenance and operations of Inglewood Transit Connector. The connector is vital to the transportation and supports Inglewood's residents, businesses, and visitors. So I urge the City Council to vote in support of the funding for Inglewood Transit Connector. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Are
you.
there any other public comments? With that, we'll close public comment. We'll go to council comments. Councilwoman Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, let me extend condolences to our city clerk, Aisha Thompson, on the passing of your mother. Sincere condolences. We've had the discussion of the ITC project, but I do want to make mention of staff because I think Lisa and the mayor mentioned that it does take a team approach to do anything to be successful. So thank you to Mr. Atwell, our city manager, and everyone involved, Mr. Phil, in that project moving forward. So thank you. Just a couple items that were on the agenda I do want to kind of make mention of. Item 3 had to do with the money given to the LA County Department of Animal Control, and it was an increase in payment. They increased their rates during the contract period, so that $87,000+ was an increase in their rates. Item 5 had to do with ITC support for the city council and other city activities, so it was to ensure there was no disruption in service. Item 6, the $80,000+ had to do with agreement costs for future events that the city has citywide. So it's always important, I think, that the public is aware of some of the things that we're doing here when we do make decisions on it. I do want to remind the public that the town hall meeting for D1 is coming up June 1st. It is at the Senior Citizen Center from, I think it's 5:30 to 8. Please come. I'm looking forward to the discussion with the residents there in my district and the department heads and to have a conversation with those folks involved in some important things that are going on here in Inglewood. Last week, there was mention of a small business that opened in my district, Churros Joint. I forgot to mention it is in my district. Norma, I believe, is one of she's the owner. And so I always applaud women who go into business along. I'm sure she's there with her husband and family. So I want to do a shout out to Norma. It is in my district. So please go by and buy some churros. The ICOP Center, again, want to remind you, it is open now from 11 to 4. Gwen Goodman is a staff person there. Want to also congratulate Tracy Shields Johnson. She is the new chamber chair of the board, and she's working with Halima Ginyard. Halima is, I think, the CEO or president of the chamber, doing a good job. So I just want to give a shout out to them. National Police Week, I think I've missed it, but I want to say thank you to all the police personnel here in this city for your service. This is Mental Health Awareness Month, so please be aware of anyone who need those kinds of services. I always say we all need help in any areas that we need it in. This is also Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, so I want to acknowledge that. So again, invite everyone to the town hall meeting on June 1st. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Within 10 seconds, I'm impressed.
Yeah, I did good.
I'm impressed. It's only 10 seconds over. Councilman Padilla.
I thought you had 10 seconds left. I was going to take them.
No,
Dang.
not a chance.
Jeepers. But anyway, I just want to thank staff. I mean, the budget report you did was amazing. A lot of moving parts. And like how we always say is, you know, it's just a small picture of the bigger budget in the sense of how it moves around. And that's why we do quarterly reviews and mid-year budget, you know, presentations. So the public can understand, you know, what it is that we're doing, how our funds are being spent, how the money's being managed by, you know, the city council and staff, right? So folks can rest assured that we're being very responsible as it comes to not only spending the monies we have today, but any future monies that we have coming in or expenditures, how we put those on the books. And it's all under accounting principles, right? So that's why it's so nice to have somebody, you know, come up here like Ms. Buchanan that understands it, can do it in simple terms so we can understand it, because it is very complicated. So thank you for your presentation, and the city is in good, very solid financial situation. So thank you again. Aisha, condolences to your mom. I know you, just a month or so ago, you lost your dad. So, you know, my thoughts and prayers out to you and your family. So today we also approved, I think we're looking at around 500,000 on grant funding that we authorized in today's budget, or not budget, in today's packet. UWASI grant funds, the Urban Area Security Initiative, working funds from the city of LA, close to 200,000, $198,000 and change. $250,000 in a grant with the LA County for Homeland Security Program grant. So you're looking at 250 plus that 198. And then we shifted the 53,000 that we didn't use from the Justice Assistance Grant Fund from the previous year for this budget. So you're looking at right around $500,000. Again, these are funds that we look at being able to use to provide service, resources for our community. So, you know, I want to thank everybody, all the staff involved in making that happen. I want to invite everybody to our pancake breakfast, which is coming up on Saturday, June 10th at Fire Station 172. The flyer's up on there. It's a way for us to say thank you and appreciation to our firefighters for what they do every day. So again, that'll be on Saturday, June 10th from 9 to 11:30. Another appreciation that hits close to home for me is this Monday is Memorial Day. And I invite everybody in our community to come out to the South Lawn where we do our annual Memorial Day celebration. It's the 74th annual celebration to remember those that have paid the ultimate sacrifice to protect the United States of America, our men and women in the military that gave their life. So please come and join us, the South Lawn at 11 o'clock on Monday. We hope to see you there, and have a blessed Memorial weekend.
Thank you. Councilwoman Dion Falk.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'd also like to extend my sincere condolences to you and your family. I know that you are going through a lot right now because you just lost your dad. So just know that we're with you. Okay. I'd like to let District 4 residents know that just within our district, give some updates what's happening in District 4. So we did some street swiping between Crenshaw and Van Ness on 104th and 108th Streets. And so this is just to refresh those streets. We've had some complaints of speeding. So we wanted to refresh those streets where the stop signs are to make sure that we do what we can to slow down the speeding that's happening in those areas. And then also in our Darby-Dixon area, we were able to move forward. We had 2 lots. And so I'd like to give a big shout out to our Public Works Director, Louis Atwell, for assisting with that. We are trying to turn those 2 unused parking lots into parking for those residents because that's an area of District 4 that is compacted with a lot of apartment units. And so a lot of those tenants in those units have multiple cars. So the parking is really challenged in that area. So what we're doing is trying to create more parking, which we've done. So we've taken 2 of those lots and we're turning them into parking lots for residents in that area. So we will make sure that Darby-Dixon residents are aware of that. We're going to put up work notices and provide that additional information. But that was that comes out of one of my my meetings that I had in the Darby-Dixon area. They asked for assistance with that, so I wanted to let them know that we are listening, and so we're working on that for them. Also, I do have my District 4 Town Hall meeting that's coming up next week on May 31st. I think we do have the flyer. There we go. And we're going to get a lot of important updates on what's happening in District 4. And we also will have the ITC project presenting, as well as we will have the county administrator from Inglewood Unified School District there to provide an update on the transition of the closing of Worthington School. So a lot of important information will be provided in my town hall. I really hope that our residents come out and get this information because these are some questions that they've been asking me. And lastly, I'd like to announce that the city of Inglewood is hosting its music festival. I think we have that flyer as well. That is happening next month, June 24th, and that's going to be in Darby Park. And so we are, now I know that our Parks and Recs director did mention that they used to have music festivals in the city of Inglewood a while ago. So we're bringing it back, and I'm really happy to work with her, Angela Williams, and our Public Works Department, and our city manager, Artie Atwell. I said Artie Atwell, Artie Fields.
Ooh, Artie.
I'm sorry.
Ooh.
I'm sorry.
Ooh.
You know how much I like you guys. Anyway, so please put these dates on your calendar. Plan to attend. It will be it will be a great time. I'll have more information coming up for you, and there will be a website that will provide additional information. So that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you go in your time? I'm amazed.
I didn't go over. I never go over my time.
We're doing
They're
we're
never
doing
over.
good. Eli Morales.
Thank you. Aisha, I mean, we're all going to say it. I'm so sorry for your loss. I mean, your mom just was so proud. I remember when I met her, you were running. Just awesome person. So I'm sorry, and you have our condolences. In regards to the budget conversation, I mean, you know, I've been here long enough to know that $100 million reserve is something very good for the city of Inglewood. You know, we've come a long, long way. And
Eli,
you
let me take a couple of seconds. How about that's 1,000% more
yeah,
than we had
I
in
mean,
2011?
I know. I trust me. I remember the years we were arguing over 20 sidewalks. You know, so it was. We've come a long way, but it's something that you know we're also learning how to live with our success, which is you know part of handling that budget. But the difference between a budget at home and a budget here is at home you don't say, oh, we're gonna spend X amount of dollars and then you don't get to spend it all. And then, you know, that doesn't happen at home. But here
Because
we
the wife
do.
takes care of
Yeah,
that.
exactly. So you already know, at least at my house, you already know how much you have to spend. But that being said, that's the difference. So here, when we start getting the updates and everything else, I think Keon did a really good job of establishing kind of the realistic place where we are. It's never going to be exact. The budget's the living document that it is. And so, I can just tell you that we are in a place today that 10 years ago, 12 years ago, we couldn't have imagined. So that was really good. I mean, we imagined it, I should say, but it was difficult to get here. But we've come a long way. So thank you to staff and thank you to all of you guys who played a role in it. And then I just want to thank everybody, my colleagues included, for we did a presentation to a Latino music group here in the chambers, and couldn't have pulled it off without staff. Start with Thomas, Carlos, KD, and then Emery. Thank you for all your help you did down there, man, for real. And then especially Jaime, who is my assistant, who that never, you know really gets to shine, but he pulled it off pretty much all by himself. So he did a great job. Thank you very much, Jaime. That's it, Mayor.
Okay, I'm going to piggyback on what you said. In 2011, we had 10 million in general fund reserves. Our spending plan was expected to reach 18 million by October or November, which means we would not have made payroll, which meant we would have gone into receivership, like the school district, which means that the governor would have appointed a receiver to run the city. The city council would have had no power. And here's what a receiver does. They come and cut the budget until it matches anticipated revenues. That means half the employees would have been laid off here. That means no services. And that means things only get worse. And so we've come from there to a 1,000% increase in the general fund to 104 in cash. And if you count property, it's somewhere in the $130 million range, Kiana or Sharon. Oh, Sharon's not here. But anyway, that doesn't even count land that the city owns. So there's been a significant change in the fortunes of the city. Now, I would disagree with Councilman Morales when he said we imagined, never imagined, but we didn't imagine it, we envisioned it. We envisioned it. There's a big difference between imagining things, that's fantasy, that's hoping, that's no plan. But we envisioned it, and we had a plan. And now we have a higher percentage of uncommitted reserve funds as a percentage of our spending plan than any city in this country. So with that, I'm going to give Aisha again deepest condolences, and I'm going to close the meeting in the name of Fonzel Smith. Thank you. And anyway, they had the opening ceremonies for the FIFA World Cup celebration, the playoffs that will start next year. And that's me standing in front of the Griffith Observatory. And the people that were running the show said I couldn't stand there, but I stood there anyway. So thank you. We're adjourned. That's how I do.